can remember coloring and using colored pencils, probably back to the age of 5, somewhere in there. And my parents always, they made a big deal of it and the hanging up on the fridge kind of deal. And then as I got a little older, they would let me cut out things. I was able to use a scissor, no questions asked. And just, I would cut out the pictures, I would hang them up. I would decorate the front windows with tempera paint. And the screen door glass I would decorate and for the holidays. And then I fell in love with Peanuts Gang and Snoopy. And I would do the Great Pumpkin. I would paint that on the front windows. And just keep going from there. And then in high school as well, I did my freshman year of high school at Curtis High School in Staten Island. And I remember the school I was in was an old castle. And I can remember doing the drawings out the window and painting the turrets on the castle and drawing them, rather, not painting them, but drawing them, and really getting my feel for shading and the dimensions, putting things into perspective. And actually, when I was in that first year of high school in Staten Island, I was in a nursing program. And when I moved to Jersey, there were no nursing programs in the high school level. I had to do that after school in college. So I continued with my art, loved my art in the last 3 years of high school, but concentrated on English because I also loved writing. So I concentrated on that, and I actually got my first associate's degree at Brookdale in writing in English. And my goal was to write and illustrate a children's book and to teach English. And I did do substitute teaching, mostly English classes, but life got in the way and I needed to earn a living. So I drove a school bus, I worked as a secretary for my counselor at Brookdale, I waitressed, I was a secretary for an insurance agent, did what I needed to do to make a living. And art kind of took a back seat, although I still wrote. And I also then pursued my second AA at Brookdale in art and art history. And wasn't encouraged to make that a career, although I did consider, with the art history, working in a museum, maybe working in a gallery someday, things along those lines. But again, life got in the way, and you have to make a living. And then I met my husband, got married, had a son, and art took a background again. I continued to write, which was a great expression. You know, if I couldn't use my hands to paint and draw, at least I could write the words. And that was what I needed at that time. My son wasn't big in the art, but we did a lot of art things together. We did crafts and things like that. But then, too, life got in the way. And I did what I needed to do, and I drove a school bus for his first 10 years of life. That way he could be with me at the time. I also owned a comic book store, and I got a little heavier into antique dealing, so I was able to express my love of the art with my antiques. I was always told that I had a really good eye for things that I was picking up, and I specialized in porcelain and pottery, especially vintage and antique, beautifully ornate pieces. Same with my jewelry that I was buying to resell. I would have a good eye for pieces that were timeless. The closer I got to leaving behind the 9 to 5 and able to set my own hours, that's when I was checking out some other venues of art, and I originally thought that I would go back to watercolors because watercolors is what I loved to do when I was at Brookdale. And I enjoyed it. I had a good feel for the watercolors. And back then, it was pretty much watercolors and oils. There wasn't a whole lot of in between like there is today with acrylics being the go-to. And I did not have patience for oil painting. I didn't have the patience to wait for paint to literally dry. I like the idea of being able to work right away while the inspiration struck. So I tried going back to the watercolors. My family even got me birthday presents of watercolors, and I tried going back to that, and while it was okay and I was satisfied with it, it was short-lived. I discovered acrylics, and that was it. I started binging on acrylic YouTubers and really got a lot of inspiration and confidence from them, and it's been life-changing. It's helped me go back to before life got in the way. It's helped me go back to that mindset where I can look at the clouds and I don't just say, oh, it's cloudy today, I think it's gonna rain. I look at the clouds and I'm like, oh, look at that, there really is a silver lining. I can get that in my next painting. I can see now where the shadow is more clearly. What direction is the sun coming from? That it's hitting the trees. It's a whole different perspective of looking at things now, when I'm especially outside, because I do love to do my landscapes. And I'm starting to branch with my acrylics into useful items, where I'm doing coasters with acrylics and working then with the resin to seal them. But yeah, acrylics seem to work the best for me. I can manipulate it enough to keep it wet long enough to work with it, to do my blending, to get exactly what I want, and then pick up a hairdryer and switch it around for a couple of minutes and dry it enough that I can paint over it if I don't like the way it looks. Can't do that with oils. Gotta wait a day or two, at least. I'll take a picture of it. Thank goodness for our cell phones, because if I am out in public and I'm out doing things and I go past a garden, I go past a farm, if I see something that I'm like, oh, I'd really like to paint that, I take a picture of it to make sure that I've captured what caught my eye. And I don't trust it to my memory. We're all getting older. Sometimes my memory fails me. So I do take a picture of it. As I said before, there are a lot of YouTubers that inspire me, and they'll go through their paintings, they'll be painting online, and they'll show how they get to this and how they get to that. And I'm inspired by their subject. And a lot of times I'll use either the same color combinations on a different subject, because I love the color combination, or I will use their subject and make it my own with my own colors. It's never identical, obviously. You can't get every branch and every leaf and every hill to be identical, but they inspire me to do the shapes and to do the scenarios. Ian Harris, he's out of Australia, wonderful, wonderful artist, and it's not his full-time job. He is a construction, contractor that does construction, still working with his hands, but he's also been able to put that into doing the painting, and he's brilliant, and he is very concise and very clear on his directions, and he's inspiring and very knowledgeable and easy to learn from. So he was actually the first YouTuber that I started following for landscapes and that. He doesn't do abstract. For my abstract work, I get inspiration from Molly's Artistry, a young lady down in Florida, and from Fiona Art, a lady that is in Slovenia. She's a hoot, if you ever watch her. And then there are a couple of others that I watch. Another one, 𝐬𝐨𝐫𝐞 from Ukraine, who's now in Canada. She also is got a brilliant eye for color and shape. There is another artist that is amazing with Dutch pour. She is in Iceland. Her name is Rinske Douna, Douna.
Okay.
She is amazing. Their eye for not just the color, but for the shape, their willingness to experiment and share their failures. Because even in every failure, you get an education. It's a learning experience. Whether it's a failure at mixing the paints, because with the abstract work, it's a lot of Dutch pouring and manipulating the Dutch pours. But you need to make the paint a certain consistency, so you need to mix it with water, with Floetrol, which extends the paint and can add cells, so you get lacing, almost where it looks like snake skin on the canvas. And but watching them experiment with that and learning how to do all of that, it inspires me to mix the two so that I can do paint pours and do the abstract, and over the abstract do a mandala, do a painting over it. One of my paintings, which has butterflies, was a paint pour that I did what they call balloon kisses on there to bring up the paint that's on the bottom and bring it to the surface. And then over that, I put cutouts of the butterflies and then painted the black around it. When I remove that, then the paint pour shows up as the butterflies. And I've seen an incredible paint pour that also had a slide on it where they would slide the paint through, and it would create these wonderful swirls in the paint. And then on that, they would, once that dried, paint a tree with the leaves and the branches blowing in the same direction as those swirls. And it's just incredible. And these are things that I would love to be able to work on. I need to work on larger canvases. I live in a very small home. So I'm anxious for the warmer weather that maybe I can move some things outside and paint outside under a tarp. A Dutch pour is where you would take your paints that have been thinned down so that they literally pour easily. And it's putting the paints one on top of the other, either on top of the canvas, in circles, make puddles. That would be a Dutch puddle pour, or in a cup. You would pour the colors into a cup so they layer, and then you literally pour it from the cup, and it makes a design on the canvas, and then you tilt your canvas to get your design, to make the lines and the swirls. And then you can, once you get your canvas all covered, you can also modify that by doing a, like I said, do a slide through it, or you can put a marble down and have the marble do swirls all through it. And then you can stretch that out additionally. It just makes some really interesting roadmaps, basically. Because I do still take so much inspiration from the YouTubers. I don't travel as much as I used to. So I do get inspiration from them, and I'm comfortable with it. I don't feel like I'm completely done yet with learning it in this genre, with the landscaping. That's why I've just experimented a little bit with the abstract. I haven't got a lot of abstract, but I'm working on that. I'm going a little bit more in with the abstract. I have it in my head, I just haven't gotten it on canvas. That is a city skyline. The crowdedness of it and everything on top of one another, yet so colorful and inviting at the same time, with the full moon and some stars. Like when doing that with the different colors, the skyline, to me it's also like doing a garden with all the colors in it. And instead of the green and the blue sky, you've got the night sky, but I think doing both of them helps me with the perspective and the color combination. That is Purple Mountain Majesty. Something must have happened that day that gave me a patriotic boost, which I'm very patriotic as it is, but something must have happened that day, either politically or with sports or something, and that was just the kind of mood I was in that day. And I wanted to do a landscape, but purple is my favorite color. A few of them did start locally. I like the swampy one over there. It's a pond actually. It's it's the sunrise over the pond, and the pond is frozen and it's snowy. And one of my inspirations for that was the bogs that I drive through, drive past and drive over here in Jackson. The one that's near the War Memorial at the end of County Line Road. If you catch it just right, the right time of day, you can get that kind of a feeling from it. And then my cabin in the woods, inspired from where I used to live in Vermont, because I lived up a dirt road in a house, sitting in the woods, and that would sometimes be my view every morning for 7 months out of the year, with all the snow. And then the one next to it was inspired by Ian Harris. He lives in Australia, in the desert areas, and that is a sunset in the desert, basically. Most of the time it's you get what you want to get out of it. I know what I got out of it. If someone else gets that same message, that's wonderful. But we're each going to get out of it the message that we need for the time. So it's like you watch TV, one person hears one thing, somebody hears something else, and that begins the conversation. Hopefully my paintings will begin a conversation, even if it's with yourself. Just to look at both sides. With the country so divided, with just people so divided, it was just kind of a reminder that we're more similar on each side than different. The winter one, that was actually inspired by a photograph that I received from my cousin in Norway. And it was a view out of his condo window. And I really liked it, and I was just like, I'm gonna start 2023 off on the right foot, and I painted that on New Year's Day at my kitchen table. I took a small canvas and I was like, I don't need a lot of room for this. And I painted that in about 3.5 hours. I guess I am an artist now. And it's very odd to say that, and very fulfilling at the same time. Yeah. Fullness, satisfaction, that I still can move my hands, number one. I've had a lot of health issues through my years, and like I said, I don't travel like I used to. I don't get around as well as I used to. So to be able to sit there and still use my brains, use my hands, use my eyes, and get the right colors, and trying to get it as real as possible. If I can look at it and say, that's what I saw. That's what I saw with my eyes, and that's what I saw in my head. It's very satisfying. It is like a fullness. And then it's like, I can't wait to do this again. Sadly, I don't get to do it as often as I'd like to. Even in retirement, life is still getting in the way. My folks are gone, but I'm sure that they know that I think of them every day. And just to thank them for encouraging me, I'd like to encourage all parents that if your child shows an aptitude for anything, even if it's something you don't like or you don't approve of, but it's not evil, obviously, encourage it. Encourage it. My love of art may not have gotten me the career that I envisioned in college, but it's giving me joy in my age. It's giving me something to look forward to on days when I don't have everything else going on around me. That I could, if not even paint, I can sit there and organize my supplies, and I get joy out of my supplies. Michaels loves me. We're on a first name basis. So just encourage them. I've encouraged my son. He doesn't have, it's funny because my son, I never thought had any artistic interest. When he was really little, he used to join me on my purchasing jaunts for the antiques and that, and he knew his antiques. He knew the difference between different pottery styles and designs that were painted on them. That was my first indication that he had any knowledge or interest in artwork, brushwork. And as he got older, absolutely no interest in art. He was a sports kid. That was the end of that. Baseball, football. Now he's a grown man. He's in his 30s, his mid-30s. And he's single, ladies out there. He's single. And besides hunting, he is a fisherman. He is working his way up to be a pro bass fisherman. He does a lot of competitions in that. He actually started making his own lures and painting them by hand with brushes, and he's very good at it. So there's a little bit of me somewhere in there, and he does appreciate the art. And anytime I paint something, I get his opinion, and he loves whatever I paint. So that's encouraging as well. So maybe in his retirement years, he'll pick up a paintbrush, even if it's just to paint lures. Don't forget about it. That's the key. Don't forget about it. Remind yourself of it. Even if all you do is take it off the shelf, dust it off, and look at it. Just keep dusting it off.
Support public libraries. Like, share, and subscribe for more great videos.